Hi guys, welcome back to the In Real Life channel. Today I'm doing a video on routines and why we have had one in place for Sophie since before she was even born. The R word seems to be a bit of a dirty word at the moment, floating around the mummy blogger, parenting blogger community, and I just wanted to do a video on why we felt it was best for me, best for us as a family, and best for Sophie. I'll try and do this in as chronological order as possible as to how we have come to the routine that is Sophie's daily routine she has today. So before Sophie was even born, I read the Gina Ford Contented Baby book cover to cover, and I know that there's a lot of people out there who really don't like it, really don't agree with it. However, I just wanted sort of as much information as possible, and I felt quite not unprepared, but as in that I really didn't know anything about babies when I was pregnant. I am the youngest in my family. None of my friends have babies. I was really not exposed to babies, what was normal, what wasn't. So I basically read anything that anybody recommended to me, and two people who I know and trust really well recommended it to me and said that it worked wonders for them and their family. So that meant that when Sophie, well, before we even had Sophie, I said to James, I said, I think the midwives like you to feed on demand, and I think if the health visitor asks, you're supposed to say you're going to feed on demand. However, I would like us to feed 4 hourly. The reason for that being that I kind of wanted to know where I stood. As I said, I felt very much like a fish out of water being pregnant. I didn't really enjoy being pregnant. If you can hear funny noises, it's because the madam in question is behind me there. And I felt very out of control of everything, so I kind of wanted to be in control. And I have always had the view that parents are parents for a reason. They are supposed to lead the way for their little ones, for their babies, and teach them sort of how to live, I suppose. So yeah, so from day one, Sophie was a 4 hourly fed baby. As much as they tried to sort of fight it in hospital and things, I was quite adamant that she would be fed every 4 hours, even if she was showing no signs of needing it yet. I still tried to breastfeed her, but then I breastfed Sophie once, and then bottle fed her express milk. I also think expressing made quite a big influence on our being adamant that she had such a strict routine from the word go. Because I was expressing, I needed to know at what time she would need what milk. So I didn't want to get to 4 o'clock, say, and her want a really big feed and me have only expressed a little feed, or the other way round, and then I didn't want to be wasting it. So I was like, nope. She had, I think she obviously started on like 1 ounce, 2 ounces, and went up from there. But every 4 hours she had exactly the same, and that's just kind of how we did it. And eventually the health visitor was like, do you know what, if it works for you, then fine. And yeah, I think when you're expressing, it is more vital to have a routine, because you need to fit 40 or so minutes of expressing in there somewhere alongside everything else that comes with a newborn. You have got to do this extra task that takes a long time in preparation for the next feed. I think we got into always being like 1 or 2 feeds ahead, but not everybody has that luxury, and toward the end we certainly didn't have that luxury. And it just helped us to know what feeds we had, what feeds we needed, or I needed to express for, and where we were at in our day. Another reason is I really think that babies thrive on routine. I think that children thrive on routine. I thrive on routine, and I am an adult. Imagine being like a baby and literally not knowing anything and not having your mum help you in that sense. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, really. But yeah, I thrive on a routine. Every morning I sort of get up, think what I've got to do that day, and sort of set out a little plan in my head and work through it. And yep, sometimes things go awry, and that's fine. I'm not that strict that it matters. Sometimes we stay longer if we go to my grandma's, or sometimes things get too hectic and we end up not going out when we were going to go out. It just helps me, so I figured it will probably help my daughter, because James is very similar. He also sort of likes to know where he stands and everything. So yeah, I figured if it works for us, and it does, she is like clockwork now. I could set my watch by Sophie. I will say, if we're out and she's in the pram or in the car, she's fine and she can be pacified. But if I'm like now wanting her to sit quietly while I do a video, I just know that that's not going to happen close to a feeding time. So as well as feeds, Sophie has always had quite structured naps. Obviously not when she was a newborn and sleeping like 23 hours a day or whatever newborns do. Of course we didn't have a routine for her naps then, but the second I felt her starting to fall into a bit of her own routine, we sort of implemented ours, I suppose. Because even as a baby with her food, she was on it every 4 hours. She isn't fed 4 hourly now, but she's fed at the same time every single day. Her naps kind of fell into that quite easily. It was like, obviously she was never napping when she should be being fed, so we never struggled in that sense. But she just seemed to naturally go for naps at around certain times. So I'd say we just sort of tweaked it around her, really. So the first thing we did was, so Sophie dropped her middle of the night feed at 4 weeks, which I just sort of tested the water to see if she would do, and I was more than willing to go back to feeding her at 2 AM if she needed it, but it just turned out she didn't, so I didn't wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning unnecessarily. So after that, I think she was 8 weeks old. James read somewhere that from 8 weeks they are starting to know what happened yesterday. So we were like, right, we've got to get this sort of bedtime thing down. When she was tiny, she always went upstairs from around 7 o'clock at night. You know, she'd be down, and even if she fell asleep or whatever downstairs, around 7 o'clock she'd be put upstairs. Then when James went back to work when she was 4 weeks old, I missed her, so I kept her down with me, and I got nothing done for a long period of time. Nothing got done because she was fast asleep, but I didn't want to disturb her because our house isn't very big, so I couldn't really do anything. I wasn't eating properly. I gained a lot of weight over that time, and it just wasn't a nice lifestyle, really. So from 8 weeks old we were like, nope, that's it, she's going back into going upstairs for her nap. Admittedly, that break did have a big effect on her, and it took a couple of days for her to go to sleep upstairs on her own, because she was obviously used to just falling asleep in my arms and things and didn't really like it. So I would say, if you are like a routine-y person, do stick to it, that as hard as it is. And I would say if you're missing them, go upstairs to be with them rather than bring them down to be with you. It's like a bit of a happy medium. From 8 weeks she was in her bed at 7 o'clock, and that nap was in her snooze pod, so she knew that that was like somewhere she associated with going to sleep, and somewhere that she was comfortable and wasn't frightening for her. A couple of nights we had to just sort of lay down next to her, but very quickly she picked it up and all was fine. Next we introduced her morning nap, again in her snooze pod, because I just wanted to keep things as familiar as possible and not challenge her too much. I didn't want to, you know, push it with her too much, because I think that's quite unfair, because she is a baby at the end of the day. But yeah, then she went from 9 o'clock, she always had a nap of a morning in her snooze pod on her own, and that really is the godsend, is the 9 o'clock nap. She can go anywhere from an hour to 2.5 hours in the morning, and that is when I get all my stuff done. That is when I have a shower. If I need to do my hair or my makeup or get like dressed properly, like I can chuck some clothes on before then, but get dressed properly. Housework gets caught up on in that time, emails get answered. That's like my real productive time, and then that means that when she does go down at 7 at night, I can have a bit of me time, which is another reason that we are so big on her routine, is because I need my own time. I'll be the first to admit my mental health isn't brilliant, and the sort of lack of sleep, lack of knowing where I am, and lack of time to relax and do whatever it was I wanted to do. And I have found my mental health has improved massively since we have had a structure to our day, because I know where I stand and nothing's out of control, and I don't need to panic about anything, and I don't need to worry, and I know where I'm at. And if she's falling out of that routine, I know that there's a reason for it. So that was her second nap, and somebody asked me earlier, like, we're trying to get I can't remember their baby's name, into a routine or into napping in their room, help sort of thing, and I said just try starting them in your room first, and apparently it really worked for them, and it really worked for us. She naturally went into her own bedroom when we got back from Centre Parks, so we obviously didn't take our snooze pod with us, so she slept in like a big girl cot in Centre Parks. Sorry, belching. And so when we got back, we were like, right, well, let's just try her. So her 9 o'clock nap and her from 7 o'clock until 10 o'clock, she has her naps in her nursery, which means I can film in here, which is brilliant. It means I can dry my hair in here, which again is brilliant. It means if I want a bit of an early night, I can come up and go to bed at any time I want, and then James, if he's off, can see to her and just bring her in, and it doesn't really disturb me as much, or if she were to wake up, it wouldn't disturb me. So it just gets her used to her own room anyway, because come a couple of months time she's going to be in there anyway, and we want it to be as easy transition for her, not just for us but for her as well. We don't want it to be super daunting for her to wake up in there. So she's more than used to it, because 9 o'clock pretty much on the dot every day, she'll want to go down and she will go down, and then similarly 7 o'clock every night, by 7 o'clock she's asleep in there. So we do 6 o'clock, she has her like dinner, which is like mush basically, then she has her bath, then she has her bottle, and then she's in bed by 7. So the next steps for us in terms of her routine is her afternoon naps, and I'll be the first to admit we haven't got those down yet, so any advice I would really appreciate it. But that's it really, that's why we have a routine. We just feel it's best for our family, we all know where we stand and we can all chip in, and what we do for her routine. If you'd like to know more, please let me know, and if not, I'll see you next time. Click like if you liked it and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Bye. Bye.